Hello and welcome. I'd like to extend a warm welcome from Ventura, California to today's webinar, Winning the War for Supply Chain Talent, sponsored by DHL and hosted by WebAttract, the leader in thought leadership webinars. I'm Lori Dearman, executive webinar producer at WebAttract, and in just a moment, I'll be introducing our panel of thought leaders as today's webinar is about hearing from these supply chain experts as they share their experience in addressing the talent shortage in the supply chain sector. Now, we've invited you along with over 1,000 professionals across 66 countries representing a variety of industries, all joining us today to learn more about why forward-thinking companies are making the looming talent shortage a strategic priority and to ensure that your company is prepared to handle it. But regardless of your industry or your location today, we're confident that you'll find today's webinar of value. We would like to go ahead and get started with a quick poll. If you wouldn't mind weighing in, looking ahead to 2020, how confident are you that your supply chain organization will have the right logistics talent to meet your organization's strategic objectives? We have a sliding scale here with 1 being not confident all the way up to 5 being extremely confident. And just want to get a sense for where you're at. So looking like just about 5% saying not confident, got 14 a step up, then 50 right there in the middle. So it looks like the majority of us feeling, 50-50. 26% of us just 1 tick above that at a level 4, and then 6% saying extremely confident. So kind of a nice distribution there with most of us at that 50-50 level. Appreciate you taking the time to weigh in on that. And as for today's program, we will be starting off with Lisa Harrington and then hearing from David Simmons, followed by Luis Genis. I'll introduce each speaker as they appear in today's program, but please note that there has been 1 change to today's program. Unfortunately, due to a personal emergency, Keith Nash will not be able to join us today. However, Lisa Harrington, who has worked with Keith over 20 years now, will be covering the Lennox content for us. So Lisa, thanks so much for stepping in on Keith's behalf. Sure appreciate that. And we'll be getting started with Lisa's portion. So first, a few words in the way of an introduction for Lisa. Lisa's a senior research fellow at the Supply Chain Management Center, Robert H. Smith School of Business, the University of Maryland, and former faculty lecturer in supply chain management. She's also president of the L. Harrington Group, LLC, a firm providing strategic research and consulting services across global supply chain strategy, operations, as well as best practices. Her articles have appeared in major business and supply chain publications around the world. And Lisa's going to start us off with a situation report, as well as some key findings to help us set up for today's discussion. So over to you, Lisa.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Laurie, and thanks for everyone for joining our webinar. We're very pleased to have so many people take an interest in this topic because it is so relevant and so critical to the future of supply chain management worldwide. So as Laurie said, I'm going to talk to you, basically give you a brief overview of where we are, what the crisis is, and then tell you a little bit about some research that we've done that DHL Supply Chain supported looking into this question. So, situation report. Obviously, we have a growing supply chain talent crisis. This is not new news. The shortage is worldwide. It's estimated that jobs in supply chain will grow at about 26% between 2010 and 2020. And that's really a pretty impressive number. The shortage is even worse than that in emerging markets, and there are a number of reasons for that, and I'll go into some of those later. For every graduate with supply chain skills, there currently are 6 holes to be filled, so 6 vacant jobs, and that number could go as high as 9-1 in the future. So competition obviously is fierce. In a Deloitte survey, 71% of multinationals say they have trouble filling senior level leadership for their supply chains. And we talk about this in the survey results. So the question is begged, who's going to be running our supply chains in the future? So getting to the DHL Global Talent Survey, we had close to 300 respondents to this survey. And I'm just going to highlight a couple key takeaways. We obviously have a much richer data set, but I'll talk to you about the 2 or 3 greatest findings. First of all, the biggest shortage in talent is, as you'll see if you look on the left side to the chart, is at the mid-management level. And it's relatively easy to find entry-level people. You'll see 26% of companies say they have a shortage there. But look how the number goes up to 54% at the mid-management level. And then if you switch to the right, the chart on the right, difficulty finding talent by level. So again, going back to the other one, easier to find entry level, gets a little bit harder at the mid-management level, but the hardest talent to find is senior level. And that's kind of no surprise because you're looking at a very robust skill set, and the progression there to that skill set is kind of a difficult ladder. So these people are fairly rare. So again, goes back to the question of, will we have enough talent to lead our supply chains in the future? The number one challenge in finding and keeping talent is changing job requirements. Essentially, we all know that supply chain is a fast-paced, fast-changing industry, and this shows up in the kinds of skill sets that companies are looking for in this field. So today, the ideal skill set is a combination of both the traditional tactical / operational, warehouse management type skills, but also professional competencies. So these are the analytics, the sort of data science. Companies are looking for people to be more creative, take more leadership roles, and have those skills to execute on those sort of more strategic functions. 58% of companies in our survey say this dual combination is hard to find today. 30% of employers report, surprisingly, that the new hires, the young people coming into the profession, don't have these combined skill sets, and in fact, they're actually poorly prepared for work in supply chains, even in the basics, which goes to, what are we teaching and how are we teaching it? And then 79% of companies say that leadership and professional competencies are essential. So going back to that leadership issue, they are essential, but our people aren't clued in and sort of trained in that. So if you look in the difficulty, how difficult is it to find these different varieties of skill sets? Again, not too difficult to find just straight technical operational people. Gets a little bit harder when you are looking for just straight analytics and leadership people. But if you want the blend, look at the yellow chart and see how that rises to almost 60% of companies in the survey said this is a tough combination to find.
Now, Lisa, can I just jump in for a moment?
Sure.
We got a quick question asking for the definition of supply chain in this research, because there are multiple definitions and it might be helpful to have clear boundaries.
Sure. So our definition of supply chain is the whole holistic end-to-end process from, if you're familiar with the SCORE model, plan, source, make, deliver, and return. So it's from literally the ground, from the supplier and all the way to the customer, and then if there's a return cycle, back to recycling or refurbishment. So it's that whole end-to-end supply chain involving all kinds of disciplines like warehousing, transportation, procurement, demand planning, product development. So does that, and I would think that would hopefully answer the question.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so who is the supply chain manager 2020? What kind of skills does he or she need to have? We asked this question in the survey, and again, it parallels what we're already seeing in the survey results, and that is the skill set is skewing toward a much more complex skill set, a blended skill set of the traditional operational type stuff, as well as people management, problem solving skills, and if you look at the yellow bars, the emphasis is going to be on sort of, so you have the table stakes, which is all the technical and operational things, and then the value add is the strategic, critical thinking, analytics, leadership. So our person is a much more robust sort of 360-degree supply chain person than we've ever seen before. The number 2 challenge that companies said in our survey is that supply chain has a lackluster image, and that's sort of a kind way to put it. Essentially, supply chain worldwide often is not seen as very sexy, and this is especially true in emerging markets where it's perceived as sort of a second or third choice if you had a full complement of options to choose from. This doesn't really help our industry, obviously, and it's an issue that we have to address industry-wide. In the DHL survey, we saw that 66% said that perceived lack of opportunity for career growth has a high or very high impact on the ability to attract and retain talent. So if there's no perception of opportunity, people aren't going to go into or stay in this field. And that's what's happening, is people may go into the field for maybe 2 years, and then they get pulled away into other sectors or disciplines like finance, like manufacturing, like operations. In other studies, I love this statistic, in 66% of 14 to 19-year-olds have literally no idea what logistics is. So this, again, we have a lot of image development to do to even get the word out that this is a viable career for people. So what are companies doing? What are some of the solutions to these problems? In the survey, if you look at this, the 3 bars that are highlighted with the red type, these were the top 3 things that companies are doing to create and feed their supply chain talent pipeline. So it's not rocket science. They're looking at creating attractive career paths. They're seeing that making sure people are recognized as a strategic asset within the overall enterprise. They're also adapting their corporate culture to changing workforce needs. And this goes to the millennials and younger folks. They work differently, and they want to work differently. So supply chain organizations have to adapt to that, and establishing a clear talent development roadmap. This would seem like a no-brainer, but amazingly, a lot of companies still don't do that. And I want to highlight the next bar up, which is companies who have taken no steps whatsoever to create a supply chain talent pipelines. Amazingly, 33% of companies in the surveys answered this way. So, I would posit that puts them at a competitive disadvantage. So how do you ensure you'll have the right talent, and what should companies do to ensure that their future talent is plentiful and that it's the right skill sets? This one, again, the top 3 provide good career path and growth opportunities, elevate the conversation in the enterprise that talent in supply chain is a valued asset and it's essential to the running of the organization. And then interestingly, create a culture of continuous learning. So these are the top 3. You can look at the others as less than those, but interesting takeaways. So now I'm going to put on my Keith Nash hat. And again, Keith was sorry he couldn't be here, but he said for me to go ahead and pretend I'm with Lennox. So fortunately, I've worked with Lennox, and so I'm really familiar with what they've been doing. Lennox is essentially, it was founded in 1895, so it's a relatively old line industrial company. They make air quality heating, cooling, ventilation systems for both residential and commercial markets. It's been a family business, but it went public in 1999, and that really started a transformation because the company realized that it needed to go from a family-driven company to a stock traded company. So Keith Nash was hired to lead their supply chain transformation effort. And what Lennox took on was essentially a 6-year transformation effort where they went from just doing complete day-to-day operations of the supply chain, putting out fires every day and reacting, as opposed to being proactive and predictive. And their goal was to not only reconfigure their supply chain, but to move the dial towards becoming more proactive and predictive in how they ran their business. So as I said, Lennox reconfigured its supply chain. It went from being just a straight distributor to a hub and spoke organization, including retail stores. And as part of that, they invested a lot in supply chain optimization and planning solutions, inventory optimization, warehouse management systems, essentially the whole complement of everything you need to run a state-of-the-art supply chain. So they went from 65 small distributor type warehouses to 70 ship locations and created over 250 stores. So the retail aspect was brand new for them. In this transformation, Lennox improved its service levels from 60%, which we all can realize is not so great, all the way up to 98%. So that's a pretty remarkable achievement in 6 years. Reduced its cost of goods and working capital, and it increased same-day fulfillment to 70% from a one-week standard fulfillment rate. The result was Lennox captured market share and doubled its business. And the key to all of this, which is why we're talking about Lennox today, is the people. The people made this happen. But being that Lennox was an old line company, the first thing that it had to do was create a complete understanding of what was the work required to do in the supply chain. How do you create a new organization to achieve what it wanted to achieve? And one of the first things they did, and again, this seems pretty simple, but it didn't exist at Lennox, was to create 68 job descriptions. They were fully enriched, like 3 pages each, basically outlining defining every single function in the supply chain, defining the expectations, defining metrics and ratings, so how people would be measured and managed, creating and tagging to each of these 68 jobs a learning management protocol or profile. So this was an online system, and so every job has, here are the 5 modules you need to study. And then online training and assessments were mapped to every position. So everybody basically, if they were in a position, they had a complete training and assessment profile that they knew about. And then they developed the 8 core attributes for every business unit role description. And these were institutionalized across the supply chain. The second step was to create for the employees an understandable career lattice. And this is a little different from a ladder, and we might have some questions about that later. But the lattice basically is a web. It's a map for every person to understand where and how they can move in their careers. So their careers could be, as this diagram shows, they could move in all kinds of directions. And this lattice gives them a map of all the possible directions that they might be able to move. And so management works with employees to essentially crystallize this lattice, and so that everybody agrees on, this is the lattice that I want to move forward with in my career. Next, they created both internal and new hire rotation systems. And this is about keeping people excited and interested in learning. And if you keep people engaged, they stay. And that was the purpose with this program. So internal, they allow people to move around within the supply chain and try out new areas of operations. If you want to go into demand planning and try that out for a while, you can do that. Essentially, the point of this is to allow everyone to experience the end-to-end supply chain and to get up to speed on the various processes and policies and tasks and positions in the end-to-end. So if you were up to speed, then the learning curve is already handled. And if staffing issues opened up and suddenly Lennox needs a lot of people in demand planning because there's a big surge or something, then there would be enough people to pull into that. So it's a very fluid design. Same kind of application in new hires. Again, create internship programs where interns move around. This is basically a 2-year program where people get to rotate through 4 or 5 or 6 different areas before they choose one. So this helps people identify their strengths and pursue a career in those strengths. And lastly, Keith is a big proponent of data science and using the latest technology in Lennox's supply chain. So new hires go through 18 months of education in data sciences. So they're looking at learning tools like Hadoop and Tableau, SAS, and others, just because technology is becoming so important to supply chain. And the new hires, as well as everyone else, needs to know these tools and be facile with them. And one of the interesting things that Keith would point out here is that within 5 years, yes, you need to know these tools, but the technology will change so much that a lot of the smart tools will do the work that's being done today by people, will do them automatically. So again, hearkening back to the DHL survey where more evaluative and leadership and strategic skills are required. The tools will do the functionality, but people need to know what decisions to make based on those. So Lennox is at the same time training people in today's tool, but also teaching them how to go and take those tools and use them for decision making to take the supply chain into the future. So that's the Lennox story. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Laurie.
All right. Thank you so much, Lisa. And folks, we're going to have a quick break here for another interactive poll. So coming up on your screen is the second question we have for you today. Where are you on the journey to create formalized supply chain job descriptions and career paths? No plans, planned but haven't started, working on it, or perhaps already completed? All right, looks like 13% with no current plans, 19% planned but haven't started. Majority here with 52% working on it and 16% already completed. And Lisa, wondering if you have any thoughts on these poll responses.
Sure. So I would say these parallel what our survey responses were. In fact, actually, this group is a little further along than our survey group in terms of already completed. I think our survey group numbers were a slightly smaller percentage, but most people fall in the middle. No one has this knocked. No one has this completely wired and nailed down. So the 52% corresponds with exactly what we found in our survey.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Thanks, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we have David Simmons, and David is Talent Acquisition Manager on PepsiCo's Global Supply Chain team. David's current responsibilities are twofold. One, to design the attraction, engagement, hiring, and retention strategy for PepsiCo's military recruitment program. And secondly, he is leading the professional recruitment for supply chain leaders across the U.S. for Pepsi Beverages, Frito-Lay North America, Tropicana, Gatorade, and Quaker Foods and Snacks. Previous roles for David have included implementing a sustainable supply chain talent sourcing strategy for PepsiCo's manufacturing and distribution facilities. In addition, David is responsible for diversity hiring efforts within supply chain, internal career development, and integration of PepsiCo's campus and professional recruiting to meet current as well as future staffing needs of the organization. Today, David's going to share some strategies around sourcing and engagement of talent at PepsiCo. So over to you, David.
Thank you, Lori. I appreciate that. No, thanks for having me. I look forward to kind of discussing it from a PepsiCo perspective, what we're doing to address that gap in supply chain talent from a talent sourcing and engagement kind of strategy. We're doing some of the career path, career development, but more from that front end, how we're trying to fill that gap. As most of you, and hopefully most of you know PepsiCo, right? We're well known for marketing our brands to consumers, so around the world. So we're taking a look at within our talent acquisition organization, how can we start to apply some of those marketing concepts to build and nurture talent pipelines for our organization. And today I'm going to take a look at kind of a high-level overview of what the structure of that talent acquisition team, that strategy looks like. And secondary, I'll look at one of the marketing concepts we're utilizing to attract, engage those future supply chain leaders. And then at the end, I'll discuss some of our non-traditional talent pools, or for some would be non-traditional talent pools that we're targeting for re-engagement and future hiring within the organization. So to take a look at kind of what we're doing at a very high level structure of our talent team, it's really built around a center of excellence and starts with an attraction and engagement team that's globally based around the social and digital, kind of building our employee brand via those channels, our employee value proposition, and that feeds into I will say a very small talent pipeline team responsible for kind of driving that engagement, those personalized, those projects around critical talent shortages that we have at the organization. And this can be very function specific or targeted to certain diversity groups. And then our frontline talent recruiters that take over to sell and handle those day-to-day recruitment duties. Very never-ending cycle and engagement that in the end helps shorten our time to fill metrics. And looking at one of those marketing concepts is kind of a drip sourcing concept we've taken from marketing is not of, hey, let's not just post our roles and hope the right person applies. It's more of a long-term, say, courtship. It's really utilizing, prospect data that's enabled us to deliver really mass customized messages that produces a list of prospects that are on target and prioritized. And we're using very customized landing pages, portals, very much asking questions of these prospects, and then creating the kind of long-term interest of who's available, when, the where, 3, 6, 12 months out, even 2 years out. And those functional, the content that we're delivering can be very function specific, can be a lot of fun stuff. For example, for us, we're delivering messages, getting our Super Bowl commercials out prior to anyone seeing them at the Super Bowl. To certain aspects, people like to see just the fun side of the organization with the end goal of returning a talent map and continue to engage with these candidates. Here's a quick example of a personalized landing page, and dear to me because I lead our veteran recruitment initiatives here at PepsiCo, which driven around some core messages to the veteran population, videos from our current employees that sit within that space and how they developed a career, and really ask, right, hey, when are you available, where do you want to be, are you open to these types of roles? We're collecting this data real time to add to our talent pipelines. Now, how did we deliver and capture this information? On our end, we're using a CRM, so a customer relationship management tool. Just in case you're wondering, we use a tool called WebAttract. There are many others out there that we leverage to kind of build our campaigns and to send emails via the recruiter sending them, or our talent pipeline, COE, getting that communication out via LinkedIn, via email, building these online portals that are very specific to by function or by group that we're targeting. And then that data is returned to our pipeline team, our recruiters, via maybe a live URL or Excel or LinkedIn, kind of real-time data continuously updated for candidate availability. And remember, for the most part, we are targeting within these are individuals that have not necessarily applied to a role for PepsiCo, but we've reached out to, that we've been proactive on, to kind of build and nurture for future opportunities that we know we're gonna have. And why do we care about this? Why do we do this? It has shown it's saved time and shortened our metrics for filling key open roles within the organization. And if we fill those holes quickly, fill those gaps quickly, so that saves the organization money. So our attraction engagement team and our talent pipeline center of excellence are very small teams, and they make an impact on a global scale as they feed this funnel, as they nurture. Are you interested, available? Continue to nurture. So it's a continual cycle that's been successful for the organization. And here's a real world example, fairly recent. We had a prospect, and this was geared at some supply chain technical talent for PepsiCo. Via various sources, we had filled that funnel and say, hey, we want to target these individuals because we know we have some upcoming positions, looking a little over 1,000. And if it's kind of hard to read that, but if you look at the numbers, over 50% didn't respond to us. And a large percentage of those actually looking ready now to talk about a role. Some willing to listen, at least have conversation, have dialogue with us. So the output for us, for our talent acquisition teams, our recruiters, is a talent map built around the who, what, the timing, the location, and providing those preferences, so those conversations can start to happen in real time for future roles. This not always normal, right? Some work better than others, but for this, these were candidates that, hey, now that we didn't have in the pipeline, looking for future roles, it continues to help drive and build our talent pipeline. Now, yes, this is, hey, what's that kind of non-traditional pool of potential prospects we're targeting, really, and we're seeing a lot of success within supply chain. It's funny, individuals that have rejected our offers. And that started on our campus organization. We started keeping metrics of those potential interns and those full-time offers that, for various reasons, they were interested in us at one time, and vice versa, for various reasons, turned us down to work with another organization. Now we've moved 2 to 3 years down the road. We're targeting those prospects that now have some real world experience, not necessarily entry level, now can, getting close to those middle management levels. They've been a great target and pull for us because they still remember our organization, still remember we were interested in them. And we're seeing a lot of re-engagement from those individuals that turned us down 2, 3, 4 years ago from a campus perspective. We're doing the same from an experienced hires that have turned us down over the years. We knew we had an interest in them, and for various reasons, they've continued to go on with their career, re-engage, repurpose our message to those candidates to get them back potentially within PepsiCo, fitted to the right role, right location, right time. And boomerang employees. Boomerang for us means individuals that have left the organization, maybe to another organization, and are decided to take some time off, go back to school, help with a family member, whatever that may look like. Reach back out to those previous PepsiCo employees to re-engage. Maybe it's the right time for them to come back with the organization, and they already have experience with us. They know what to expect. we've seen success within that boomerang population as well. Now, what's next? From a metrics perspective, we're kind of there already. We're moving to a 0 days to hire. We don't have an open role, but now in 60 days now we know so-and-so is going to move from A to B. What's in our pipeline? So we're able to look and already have someone identified and start interviewing way prior to, from a proactive stage when that role opens up. And we're looking at more automation. There's a lot of AI out there within the talent acquisition space of how we continue to personalize those messages, really automate that more, and to just continue to just fill that pipeline with the right messaging, the right personalized follow-up. So that's a kind of a quick overview of those, just a high-level sourcing engagement kind of strategies, things that we're doing here at PepsiCo. So Lori, back to you.
All right, thanks so much, David, and we'll have you back at the end for Q&A. Next up, we have Luis Genis, and Luis is Vice President of Global Talent Management Acquisition Certified Learning and Development at DHL Supply Chain, where she's focused on the growth and strategic development of the Center of Expertise, also known as the COE, part of the human resources function. Leading the COE across DHL Supply Chain globally, she works closely with key stakeholders and customers and is accountable for providing thought leadership and proactive, relevant, research-driven solutions and programs that drive business imperatives. So Luis is going to take us through a case study on the DHL Supply Chain Certified Programs. Over to you, Luis.
Thank you, Laurie, and hi, everybody. So today I'd like to share with you what could be described as the cornerstone of DPDHL's talent management strategy, and that's certified. So I define certified as our brand for learning and development and engagement, and it's a group-wide framework designed to develop skills, mindset, and behaviours for individuals to become certified specialists in their field. CSCS is the supply chain version and covers the fundamental requirements of supply chain management. This program equips all employees with the essential tools to tackle daily workplace challenges and reinforces a common understanding of specific skills and behaviours needed to do the job, and also supports career progression. Each module is based on a common set of high-quality standards, including an assessment to ensure participants have truly mastered the learning. This forms a key element in both driving performance and retaining talented people. Within DPDHL, Certified was first launched within our Express division in 2010 and then subsequently in supply chain in 2014, and has been successful at many levels of our organisation. You can see here from the snapshot that the business results from an engagement perspective and financial perspective for Express. So looking at this, we believe this is a major factor in the company's long-term success. We refer to CSCS as the passport to success. Success both for individuals acquiring skills, continuous learning, and for DHL supply chain. But as we've heard in previous talks, supply chain is changing fast, and therefore Certified needs to continue to evolve to keep us ahead of the pace of change, focusing on skills for the future and creating a culture of continuous learning for all. Creating this environment will support us in many ways. In attracting talent, I think it demonstrates the company's commitment to developing and investing in its people. By retaining talent, providing new skills for the future, and also career frameworks, and attracting and retaining customers. I always say our people are our key differentiators in this highly competitive market, and it's critical that we attract, invest in, and retain our talents to ensure we can give our customers the best possible service. CSCS also provides a platform for us to mobilise all our employees worldwide towards a common objective to deliver our strategic goals. Today, the supply chain impacts every part of our lives, how we shop, what we wear, what we eat, and how we save lives, and everybody has a part to play. The message we like to reinforce with our employees is that everybody is an essential part of everyday life, and we embrace this through our DHL spirit of right, first time, can do, and passion. Our foundation class is the beginning of everybody's learning journey in supply chain. And following this, you have the opportunity to attend other functional specialist or leadership modules appropriate to the role and needs of the individuals. At the end of every certified module and following successful completion, individuals have opportunity to earn stamps for their passports, and here are some examples of those. We also use Certified as a recognition program, so employees can receive additional stamps, for example, being a first aider or a fire warden. So when we looked at developing Certified, one of the major considerations was ensuring it appealed to different learning styles and really understanding what our employees wanted to do and how we could really engage them for both today and tomorrow. So the key components of Certified are based around different channels of learning, each having their own strengths and weaknesses and appropriateness learning for particular topics. Consistency is also the key to our certified learning curriculum, and each class is structured in a similar way to ensure the topics are covered no matter where you take them around the world. So how did we get started? I think some of the key learnings for us, following the tremendous amount of effort and hard work in actually getting this off the ground, were to ensure that you've got buy-in from senior management and they can act as role models. To pilot in one part of the organisation to learn from it, and as I said earlier, in our case it was Express. They got this up and running and they were able to identify best practices to prove the investment made sense. Engage the real subject matter experts within the business to help develop the curriculum and understand what competitors are doing and do something a bit different. This helps to attract talent. And ensure you build in an element of fun, keeping it interactive and exciting. That's really worked for us. And finally, celebrating success. Everybody likes to celebrate and it creates great pride in what people do. So this works for us as a business and it is definitely assisting us in addressing our talent gaps within DHL supply chain. Thank you, and back to you, Laurie.
All right, thank you, Louise. And we're going to turn it over to Lisa Harrington to just wrap things up with a few key takeaways. So, Lisa?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Louise and David and Laurie. So I'm not going to take a lot of time because I want to get to the questions and let everybody weigh in on what they want to know. So we've heard a number of takeaways here. So here I have 8. And I'm just going to run through them very quickly. One is develop and maintain clear job descriptions. Again, sort of table stakes in this, but so many companies don't have this still. 2 is develop robust career pathing. That is essential to attracting and keeping talent, especially in emerging markets, as I alluded to, where supply chain has an image problem. Rotate people through different disciplines, keep them interested, keep them excited about supply chain. Lifelong learning. Create online learning systems. Louise talked about theirs. Lennox has theirs. PepsiCo has theirs. So that's really create all those digital learning modules. Pursue internal and external professional certification programs. So Louise talked about DHLs and that. So you can develop them internally or externally. You can use outside organizations like APICS or CSCMP. Whatever you do, certification is kind of a way to create a standardized platform for what people are equipped to do and how they do it. Recognize the value of supply chain in the enterprise. Again, this goes to, if you want to attract people, you have to make sure that they know that they've got a valid career path and that they will be valued employees and not shunted off to some second tier career path. Talent mapping, David talked about that, going from reactive, meaning I got a job opening, I need to fill it, all the way to how can we predict our openings and how can we reach out to people who may have rejected us in the past and keep engaging people and developing that. And then finally, talent centers of excellence. So this is really the sort of the culmination of everything that we've talked about. Talent really requires its own center of excellence. It is worth investing in, and we have supply chain centers of excellence, we have procurement COEs. It's time to have a talent COE. So the final takeaway is people are the biggest asset in supply chain, and people are what drives competitive advantage. And the more companies embrace that, the more they are able to compete and succeed and be profitable. So I'm going to turn it over to Lori, and we're going to start our Q&A.
All right, thank you, Lisa. And in fact, we've got a number of questions in the queue here. We'll do our best to get to them. I'm going to start with the first one here for you, David. Question is, what impact has the campus rejection strategy had?
Thanks, Lori. Now, for us, that was it's been a win-win for the organization. You know, I know many think that they rejected us. Why would we ever want to go back to them? But we've seen the ability to bring now candidates that have great real-world experience in engineering and other supply chain areas back into our organization and make an impact. And it's a warm lead for us. You know, they have the knowledge of our organization, and we know we like them. So we've seen that pool increase, and we've seen hires from it. So it's had an impact on our field supply chain organization as well as our supply chain organization within our headquarters locations.
All right, fantastic. Next question here, going over to Lisa, and that is, can you tell us more about designing the 68 supply chain job descriptions? I think that was part of the Lennox presentation.
Sure. So as you heard, Lennox was a really old line family company, and job descriptions were pretty much ad hoc. And to be honest, there were a lot of family members employed early on. So there was really never any overarching strategy about creating job descriptions. So what Lennox did when it set about to transform its supply chain, it knew that it could no longer have ad hoc job descriptions that just wouldn't cut it. So it took almost a year and a half to write these 68 descriptions. First of all, they had to figure out that there were 68 jobs, specific roles in supply chain. And then they had to really quantify what those roles were and develop, like I said, that 3-page précis about, everything about that job. And it was interesting because once Lennox did this was the first area in Lennox that had ever done that sort of codification of jobs. And the CEO said, wow, this is great. I want this everywhere in Lennox. We need it in manufacturing, we need it in marketing. So this really took on a life of its own, and it became like a corporate mantra to codify the jobs and create these career paths attached to these descriptive jobs. And so what it did was standardize and formalize jobs, so that they were plug and play, literally. You knew if you're a procurement person, you have, let's say there are 3 levels, and there's a description for each level, and you could go for them and understand them. So that was the effort there.
All right, coming over to you, Luis. How do customers benefit from your Certified Supply Chain Specialist program?
Good question. Thank you, Laurie. So I think it starts with great customer service and great service quality. And our foundation program really focuses on the end customer. Also within the foundation program, there are many films directly from customers, which our employees are able to hear from directly. I think that has a huge impact. I think the the three essentials I talked about, so the passion, right first time, and can-do attitude, helps our workforce understand that actually their mindset is focused on making our customers more successful. And I think that's a real key element to sort of benefiting our customers, because the higher engagement we have, the higher customer focus leads to loyalty. And I think once employees are really understand what they're doing and how they're making customers successful and they love their work, I think it really comes through from a customer point of view as well.
All right. Over to you, David. The question is, are there opportunities for international students in the U.S. to enter the supply chain field, and what should we do to stand out and get a chance?
Yes, now I was looking at that question, and it's good timing there, because we, as an organization, we are global in scale, right? 200 plus countries, and we are launching actually this fall a pilot for international students in the U.S. And one of those areas being supply chain, to do internships here in the U.S. and are back in their original country within our organization. So it is a pilot, so there's certain schools that we're targeting right now, but we know this is a miss, because there's great international students here in the U.S. that want to apply their skills here in the U.S. and are potentially back in their home country, and we're targeting those candidates right now. So that's what I had on that.
All right. Let's see. I've got one more for you, David. Could you be more specific when you describe veteran people?
Sure. When I talk about veterans, and specifically in the U.S., individuals that have served in the armed forces. So you think about the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, the Coast Guard. So specifically, those are veterans within the U.S. from that have served in our armed forces.
All right. Thank you, Lisa. Given the scarcity, what recruiting channels are companies using to source external talents?
So they're using pretty much along the lines of what David was saying. They're having to get very creative. So one of the things they're doing, and one of the things that works really well, is to create relationships with universities. And I have to say I'm biased because I'm a university type person, but the universities or vocational schools are excellent pipelines, and companies have the opportunity to craft if they work closely with universities or technical schools, to craft those programs to give them what they want. So schools are very open to this. So I would say that's one real great opportunity to kind of create your own pipeline and craft it the way that you want to produce the assets, the talent assets that meet your needs. So much closer relationships with educational institutions, as well as professional organizations. Do the same thing with your global supply chain professional organizations. And in fact, a lot of governments in countries like China is working very closely with professional organizations to create those bonded relationships, to tailor the pipeline so that it meets the needs of the industry.
All right, thank you. I've got a question we're going over to Luis, and it starts out with a thanks for the good presentation. And as you said during the introduction of the webinar, a lot of talent out there doesn't find supply chain work, and I'm quoting here, as sexy. My question is, to solve this perception issue, couldn't we show the talent how supply chain impacts company rentability, profitability?
Thank you, Laurie. I think we're doing many things to try and make supply chain more sexy in the marketplace. Most definitely through our David touched on some of the the talent acquisition piece, so going out to market, going to universities and really showcasing, you know, what we're doing and actually using some of our younger talents to go out and talk to other younger people, because I think that really has a big impact. So I think through our career fairs, through our marketing, through our CSR events, so a number of I guess charitable organizations we get involved in terms of actually promoting supply chain. I think the key to this is just really showcasing that, you know, we have fantastic programs in place to develop talent. There's career frameworks in place, and also, you know, as a global organization, from a mobile point of view, you have opportunity to go to other countries and learn new cultures as well. So I think the more we can go out to market to actually showcase as a supply chain what we do and be that employer of choice, I think the better equipped we will be to attract that sort of talent, and most definitely then, you know, that will contribute to our overall profitability as a business if we have the right talent with the right skills in place.
I'd like to jump in on this one. So one of the things that's really exciting about supply chain is the technology that it deploys. Supply chain is really at the forefront of all kinds of technology, AI, artificial intelligence, robotics, you know, virtual reality. And so I think this resonates really powerfully with millennials and new people coming into the field. And I think supply chain has to sell itself because you heard about all the analytics capabilities. And they, you know, they may sound boring, but really it's the most exciting developing technology milieu that I can think of in business today, because it's everything. It's drones. It's all like the latest stuff. So I think that is a very powerful sales message to go out and to the market to attract talent, is like you get to work with the best, the newest, the most cutting edge technology. I think that's something that we need to sell.
All right. I think that's a great note for us to be wrapping on. We are at the top of the hour, and we have a number of questions here in the queue that we didn't have a chance to answer on air, but we certainly will follow up post-webinar. Before we sign off, I would like to thank each of you for joining us and trust you found today to be of value. Special thanks for Lisa Harrington, Keith Nash in preparation for today's webinar, David Simmons, Luis Jennis, and of course our sponsor DHL. And again, most importantly, thanks for joining. This is Lori Dearman saying, hope we see you on the next one. Have a great rest of your day, and bye for now.